This video is for the Brilliance Mystery Knit Along, specifically just some troubleshooting tips for Clue 2. So I'm going to demonstrate how to add an Afterthought Lifeline in the Stranded Colorwork section of Clue 2. And because a lot of people are doing the I-cord edge, I'm also going to show how to, with the lifeline, to get the I-cord stitches on the lifeline, and then how to pick them up from the lifeline in the correct order. So you will need a tapestry needle. I like to use embroidery floss on mine because it's strong enough that it'll hold the stitches well, and I can pick bright colors so I can see where my lifeline is. It is helpful, you don't have to have it, but it's helpful to have a smaller needle than what you were actually working with. Just to go back in and pick up the stitches off the lifeline, it's a little easier to get them onto a smaller needle than to get them on the size needle that you were working with. Not necessary, but helpful. So with that, let's get started. So to begin with, to pick up the stitches from the I-cord edge, you actually want to start not in the front, but so if this is your right side and this is the right of the right side, you want to flip to the wrong side and you want to work on the same edge, but you want to start with these stitches in the back. Okay, so if you look at the stitches on the I-cord, you're looking at them, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this direction, but actually the way the stitches are mounted, this stitch back here that you work on the back is 1, this is 2, and then on the front you have 3, 4, and 5. So what you want to do is you actually want to come to the back and pick up the stitches in the back first, because when we go to put them back on the needle, we have to mount them in a different order than they're actually appearing across here. Okay? So before I figure out where to put my lifeline, I actually need to figure out where in my pattern I'm going to put the lifeline. So if you look at my Clue 2 here, I've got the beginning, this whole first set is correct, and then it is not correct after, so I've got the peak of these diamonds right here. This next row that comes across from that peak is not correct. So I have the first 6 rows of my pattern are correct, so I actually want to go into the 6th row of my project with the lifeline. So in order to do that on the I-cord edge, I'm not going into the 6th stitch on the I-cord, because actually each stitch on the I-cord that you see over here is 2 rows. So 1, 2, 3 is actually this set of I-cord right here is actually where that row is that I'm wanting to go in with that I-cord. So if that, just to explain that a little bit, when you make the I-cord, you're working across the 5 stitches in the front, right? You work knit, slip, knit, slip, knit. And then when you come back across on the other side, you slip this stitch here, knit this one, slip this one, knit this one, slip this one. So you're actually only working, of those 5 stitches, you're actually working each stitch once, and those slips are what make the stitch taller. When you bring the yarn to the front, or when you bring the yarn around the stitch that you're slipping, it makes it taller. And so that's how the I-cord can stretch for 2 rows of knitting. So I'm going to flip to my back, and again, because I'm picking up stitches on the 6th row, I want 3 rows of I-cord. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to come in under the right leg of this stitch, the right leg of the next stitch, and then the 3rd stitch is actually there on the corner, so I'm going to go through the right leg there. And I'm going to flip to the front, and I'm just going to pull my yarn through so it's easier to see. And then so I've gone through the right leg of this stitch right here, so then I need 2 more. This one and this one. And I'll just pull my yarn through again. So that's kind of the first part, is getting your lifeline into the I-cord. And then I'm going to try zooming in here, just so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. It's really hard for me to stay in frame because I can't watch what I'm doing and watch the camera to make sure, so I'm going to try to keep my hands really still. So this next part is, you've got to pick up the stitch that's actually that stitch at the very edge, right after you slip the stitch marker, is a purl stitch. All right, and slipping or getting the purl stitch on the lifeline is a little bit difficult, especially if you're actually wrapping, catching your dark color at the edge as recommended. It's that dark color is kind of wrapping around the, if you can see here, where my dark color is coming down around a stitch. So to find that correct stitch to get into might be a little difficult, but you just want to pick up the leg of that purl stitch. From there, it gets pretty simple because we're just picking up the right leg of each stitch in this 6th row. So you can either count or you can just, so I'm gonna pick up a couple of stitches here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I get my leg here. All right, and once you get past the first 2, if you look at the, this isn't a color, but if you look at the chart for this clue, and you look at, okay, so I'm picking up stitches from row 6, you should be able to see which colors you need to be picking up. So I've done my purl stitch and I've done that first stitch. So I'm looking for light, light, dark, light, light, dark, all the way across into my last 2 stitches. So when I'm looking for which stitch to go into, light, light, dark, just knowing that pattern helps keep me from my lifeline going to a different row, if that makes sense. So if I'm always picking up the right leg, light, light, dark, helps keep me on track, knowing which stitch to pick up. And you're just going to do this all the way across the row that you need to pick up. You're just going to, you can go through a bunch of stitches, you can go through a few stitches, whatever works easiest for you. You're just going to take that needle tip through the right leg of each stitch all the way across. And I said, as I said, if you know the pattern, I mean, this would work for anything that you're doing in stranded color work, where you know the sequence of the stitches that you're picking up. It just helps to keep you on track. Light, dark, light, light, dark. Okay, and so now I'm getting over here to my final edge. So I've got this light stitch here, and then I've got another purl stitch that I've got to get into. So I'm just going to kind of come here to the back, and I'm probably not through. Let's see, that right leg is definitely underneath the this column of knit stitches here, so you're going to have to kind of pull it back to get into that. And then for the I-cord on the edge, we're going to do the same thing in reverse. So we're going to go through the right leg still, but we're just going to go all the way around. So we'll start with this leg here, and that one, and then this one that's on the edge. And then I'm going to come around here to the back, and just to make sure, I'm going to count 1, 2, there's my 3rd row, and I'm going to pick those up. So that's just the process of getting the lifeline in. You can take your tapestry needle off and just leave the cord hanging there. And at this point, all those stitches are secure. Okay, you should be able to pull your needle out. Zoom out a little bit here. So you should be able to pull your needle out at this point and just pull those stitches out. And I've got quite a few rows, so it's going to take me a minute here. Unfortunately, I've tried to get my my son is a videographer. Okay, so that just makes it worse, right? That my videos are not great quality. I've tried to get him to help me out to find just a program that I could make some simple edits on. And his response was, "There's no such thing as simple edits, Mom." So, basically his take is, if I'd like to spend a couple of weeks learning how to use an editing program, my videos would look so much better. And yeah, I would rather spend a couple weeks knitting. So, oh well. All right, so once you get down close to your lifeline, you just kind of want to check and make sure that the stitches are all kind of coming out on the same row. I've got one more row to go here. All right, now I will tell you that once you pull your yarns out, especially with stranded color work, they're going to be kind of twisted. So what I do is I just kind of pull them out into a little pile, and then as long as you're pulling the yarn and not like jumbling it after it's out, you should be able to just wind it again. You should be able to wind it from where it's at, and you might have to like wind a little bit of one color and wind a little bit of the other color since they're kind of coming out together. But you should be able to get the yarns back into a ball without too much trouble. All right. My yarn is telling me, okay, I can't go any further. So at this point, I need to pick up my stitches. Okay, so picking up the stitches on the I-cord is a little bit tricky because we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, but they're in... I don't know what they call it. It's like chronological order instead of alphabetical order or something like that. So if I go through where my lifeline is, I'm going to be picking up 5 stitches in a row, but they're not going to be in the order that I need to work them anymore. All right, so I'm just going to go in here where my lifeline is, and I'm going to put these 5 stitches on the needle. And at this point, what I would do is I would pull the lifeline out from those stitches. So just kind of get a little bit going here and then pull so it's just not in those stitches anymore. And then I would be using, I mean, you could use a variety of things. You could actually use your tapestry needle. All right, you could grab a few stitches here, and then you have 3 stitches and then 2 stitches on the back, and these 2 stitches actually go this way. So this is the order that those stitches actually go in. So you could take the other end of your needle, for instance, and just pick up 1 stitch at a time from, so the first stitch comes off the tapestry needle. It's kind of tricky. Second stitch comes off that needle in the back. Third stitch comes off the tapestry needle. Fourth stitch comes off the needle in the back. Fifth stitch off the tapestry needle. And now your stitches are mounted on the tip of this needle the way that you're actually going to work them when you get back to them. So, like I said, it's a little tricky. Been watching too much Lord of the Rings. It's a little tricky, but once you do it, hopefully you don't have to do it much, but hopefully that helps. Even if you're not in this particular section, if you can see how to first get the stitches onto the lifeline and then how to get them back off the lifeline in the correct order. So I'll do the other side too. But once you've done that, you're just going to go through the stitches that are on the lifeline, making sure that your stitches are pointing in the right direction. So just kind of keep that lifeline straight. And just take the tip of your needle through each of those stitches on the lifeline. And this is just why I like the smaller needle, is because the stitches do like to kind of pull down as you've, like from the time that you've worked them and as you put them on the lifeline, they're just going to want to pull tight. And so if you're trying to get them onto the original needle size that you worked them with, it may be difficult. So I'm going to show you right here. One of the issues with taking a lifeline through is sometimes, see if I can zoom in enough. I hope you can see that. Whoops. So I don't know if you can see right here. Grab my pointer right here. I actually got the lifeline through, like I snagged part of the stitch. And so I split the yarn. But as long as I get my needle tip through the head of the stitch, when I pull my lifeline out, that should close up. So I'm just going to make sure I go into that stitch carefully so that when I pull my lifeline out, my yarn's not split anymore. So little things like that Just want to be careful when you're putting your stitches back on. And if necessary, I'll show you one of the other things I do when I get to the end of picking up the stitches here. Sorry for my gravelly voice today. Our weather this year has just been insane. Like, we didn't get any winter. It was 40 or 50 degrees every day, most of the winter time. And since it's technically been spring, it's just been seesawing between 70-degree days and like 20 degrees. And every time the weather changes, my allergies just go haywire. So, all right, so I've now picked up the last, that purl stitch at the edge. And so all I have left are my stitches here on the end for the I-cord. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to grab this tapestry, this thread, this embroidery thread that I used as my lifeline, and I'm just going to pull it back out. So all that I have left on the lifeline are just the I-cord edge stitches. And I'm going to be careful not to pull it out of the other edge. Okay, so I've got all my stitches back on my needle here, and all I need now is to pick up these I-cord edge stitches again. So to do that, because again, the way that they're on the needle, it wraps around here. I can't necessarily get them on my needle, all of them on my needle that way. So what I'm actually going to do is get some of the thread yarn out of the way here. I'm going to go in through these back 2 stitches with the other needle. And then I'm going to pull that part of the lifeline out. So just out of the stitches that I just picked up on that back needle. Okay, and then I have these 3 stitches on the front, and these are these are my front stitches. And remember, they need to alternate with those stitches in the back. So I'm just going to take my tapestry needle through those. Maybe. And that will give me the ability to, again, so I'll have them on 2 needles, and then I can mount them in the correct order. So I'm going to pull that out gingerly. I'm going to wish that I had mounted these on the opposite. All right, so I'm going to do something that I might regret. I'm going to take my tapestry needle, I'm going to pinch those stitches, and I'm just going to flip it around here. Stick it back in the other way. All right. So, and I am actually going to wish that I'd done it the opposite way on my back needle as well. So I'm going to do that as well. I'm just going to pinch the stitches so they don't fall out. And then I'm just going to flip my needle around and come in the other direction. So everything's pointing toward the needle I need to put them on. So then I'm just going to carefully, hopefully without losing any stitches, I'm going to take one off the front, off the tapestry needle, and then one off the back, off the main needle, one off the front, one off the back, whoops, and the last one off the front. And now my beginning I-cord edge is also all mounted correctly in the right order to be worked. So at this point, it's just a matter of getting your correct size needle, and you should be able to pick up exactly where you, so if I just worked a row 6, then I can be able to go back and start row 1. And I'm just going to put my stitch markers back in after I work the first 5 stitches, and then when I get to the last 5 stitches. And if you're really, if you're worried about, I'm not going to remember when I get back, you can slide your stitches to the other end, for instance, and just put your stitch markers on before you start. And so this is kind of the other thing that so I'll do that real quick. But as I said, if you're worried that when you picked up stitches, maybe you didn't get exactly through the middle of each stitch, one of the things you can do is you can actually just do what I did here, but then just go across your row of stitches and slide each stitch from needle to needle, just making sure that you're through the middle of each stitch before you start knitting again. So you can do this as you're knitting, but it just helps to, make sure everything's oriented correctly, you want to make sure the right leg of each stitch is coming over the top of the needle toward the front. And other than that, I hope that that was helpful to get that lifeline in and then get the stitches picked up from the lifeline, and also to get those I-cord edge stitches in the correct order on the lifeline, and then back onto the needle in the correct order. So the other thing I wanted to say about the I-cord is the reason that we did that, as opposed to just going through the stitches in the correct order. Let me grab my tapestry needle here. Excuse me. Because our stitches are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, but actually the order that they're worked is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's virtually impossible to get the tapestry needle through the stitches in the order that you would pick them up to get them back on the needle correctly, if that makes any sense, because you basically have to be going in. I'm going to go in through the stitch here in the back, and then I've got to get my tapestry needle over here to the front to go in through the next stitch. Does that make sense? So you just can't weave through those 5 stitches because they're basically like this. Okay, as they sit on the needle. This is backwards because this is actually what it's like looking at it from the back, is you've got those 2 stitches back here, and they're kind of in between those 3 stitches in the front. So your stitch order on the needle is you're working across in this order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But when you actually look at the I-cord, it's more like this. It's more of a round, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so if you try to pick up in this order, you're just going to get a hopelessly tangled waste yarn or whatever you're using on your tapestry needle, and it's not going to pick them up as easily. So I hope that helps. Let me know if there's anything else I can show you. One other thing before I go. Actually, I already went, but one other thing. I forgot to mention, when you're done picking up your stitches, your working yarn is not going to be at the end, okay? Because we picked up the I-cord edge stitches in order, you actually have your working yarn at the end of the previous, like, you just worked row 6, but you didn't work the edge stitches yet. So you can just slip those stitches, those 5 I-cord stitches from the edge to your needle, and then if you did pick up on a smaller needle, I would recommend you work these loosely, but then you can just work the I-cord edge stitches to get your yarn over to the edge where it needs to be to start. Just work them nice and loose if you're going to be going back to a larger needle size, so that there's plenty of room to work. Okay? Sorry for the addendum.